Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel, or welcome if you're new. Today I think we're in for a little bit of a longer video because we're going to be discussing the books that I've read in 2024 so far. My reading has been all over the place in these last few months. I recently moved back to Spain after living in the US for 2 years. That was back in November, and between moving to a different country, switching jobs twice in 3 months, and just everything, I haven't had the time or even the motivation at times to pick up a book. And to be honest, if it wasn't for audiobooks, I probably wouldn't have read much, if anything at all, in these last few months. So with that as context, let's talk about the books that I read or listened to in this last 3 months. Starting off with January, I read 2 graphic novels, Lumberjanes Volume 1, Beware the Kids and Holly, and Volume 2, Friendship to the Max. This series was recommended to me by a friend a couple of years back. It sounded really interesting, but my library didn't have it at the time and I kind of forgot about it. And then this year I saw them again on Goodreads and I was like, let's try to look for them in my new library when I was in the US still. And thankfully, my library does have them accessible through Libby, so that's where I'm reading them. I'm gonna be honest, the first volume had me a little bit confused. I wasn't sure what the series was meant to be about. I thought it was just about girls at summer camp, but turns out it's not. And I don't know, at first I was a little confused, but the more I read from the series, the more it gripped me, and it's a really fun story. It is about girls at camp, but there's a lot more that goes into it. And it's just a fun little read. The graphic novel, so they read through pretty quickly. I like the second volume better than the first one, and I just have a lot of fun following the little adventures at camp. I rated them 3 stars and 3.5 rounded up to 4 respectively. Another thing that I read in January is actually a short story in the Shadowhunter Chronicles universe, whatever you want to call it. It's After the Bridge, which is a Jem and Tessa story. My story with this series is a little bit complicated. I first started reading the books around the time that City of Glass was published, and then I stopped reading for a while because I didn't have time to read, and just recently picked it up again, and I'm trying to catch up with everything that has come out since, which is a lot, before The Wicked Powers comes out. As of now, I only have 2 books left, I think. It's the last 2 books in the Last Hour series, and also I need to pick up the what's it called? It's the series that focuses on Magnus and Alec. And regarding the short story, it was good. I mean, it was just okay. It's a short story. It wasn't anything too exciting or anything. I rated it 3 stars. And then lastly, even though technically this is what the bulk of my reading for January is, I listened to 8 audiobooks. The first book I read and finished in 2024 was New Adult by Timothy Janowski. Probably butchered that name. This is, I think, the 3rd book I read by this author, and when I first started it, I thought it was going to be my least favorite out of the 3. But the more I read, the more I started liking it and enjoying it. It's not my favorite, but it was still enjoyable, and I had a good time reading it. It's just that the main character, Nolan, really got on my nerves, especially with the decisions he made in the beginning of the book. But slowly and surely he started redeeming it himself, and I ended up enjoying it. I loved his character growth by the end of the book, and I gotta admit that my favorite part of the book was Drew, the love interest. He was the one that kept me wanting to continue listening to the book until the end, and I'm really glad I did. I really liked it by the end. Overall, it was a cute romance and a very quick read, and I rated it 3.5 stars, rounded up to 4. Next, I listened to Havenfall by Sarah Holland. This was an okay read. It was entertaining, the writing was good, the world building was really cool and interesting, but I just feel like the plot was a little bit too predictable in my opinion. And while it was okay and entertaining, it was just not anything groundbreaking. It was just a fun read, and I do plan on continuing with the 2nd book in the series. I just don't know when. It's just not a priority because it wasn't a book that really stuck with me too much, so I'm not overly concerned with continuing it quickly. I rated this book 3 stars. Next, I listened to In the Long Run by Hallie Cass. This was also the 3rd book I read by this author, and I was really excited to pick it up because I had really enjoyed the previous books that I read by them. But unfortunately, this book did not live up to my expectations. It was still an okay read. It was entertaining and the romance was pretty good, but I don't know, there was something missing in this book. It didn't completely like capture me. I much preferred Those Who Wait, which was the first book that I read by this author. In the end, I rated it 3.5 stars, rounded down to 3. Next, I listened to She's Too Pretty to Burn by Wendy Hurd, which I believe I heard is inspired by The Picture of Dorian Gray. This was a very good book. It was really entertaining and interesting, and I really like the plot, and it was somewhat fast-paced as well, which I always appreciate about a book. Again, I also feel like the plot, or like, let's say, the identity of the villain was pretty predictable in this book as well, but still it was enjoyable and I had a lot of fun with it regardless. In that ending, oh my god, like at the time that I finished the book, I did not like the ending. I was so mad that it ended like that, but after sitting with it for a while, I understand why those choices were made. I rated it 3.5 stars, rounded up to 4. Next, I listened to Final Draft by Riley Redgate. This book has been on my TBR for years, and I finally decided to pick it up in January. And to be very honest with you, I do not remember much of what happened in this book, just like bits and pieces. I reread the synopsis before doing this video, but still, like, most of that book is like blank for me. I do not remember much of it at all. And I guess it just means that the story didn't stick with me and it was just pretty forgettable in general for me, which is sad because I was really excited to read this book and I feel like at the time I must have enjoyed it because I rated it 3 stars. Next, I listened to Our Dog Duet by V. Schwab, which is the second and final book in the Monsters of Verity series. I have a love-hate relationship with V. Schwab's books because some of them are like my favorite books. I love them. I would do anything for them, like I would defend them with my life, but some others are just like meh, like they were okay, could have been better, could have been worse. So yeah, my relationship with her books and her writing is weird, and that was definitely the case with the first book in this series, The Savage Song. I liked it, I enjoyed the process of reading it. It was not what I was expecting going into it, but still it was enjoyable and I like some of the characters a lot, so I was excited to pick up the second book. And I did enjoy the second book more, but still like not my favorite book that I've read by V. Schwab. I think I rated the first one 3.5, rounded up to 4, and then the second one 4.5, rounded down to 4. The next 2 books I picked up because they were very short audiobooks and they were free on Audible, and I was stuck in the car for a while and I had run out of listening material. I usually, when I'm driving, I prefer listening to audiobooks instead of music because I tend to get distracted with music and sing and forget what I'm doing and not pay attention to the road. So I listen to audiobooks, which keep me more calm. And I had just finished my previous audiobook on the way to work, so I needed some material for the ride back, which was about an hour. So this happened twice. And I ended up picking up these 2 books because, again, they were free on Audible and pretty short, so I figured it wasn't like a very long commitment or anything. None of these were the first time that I decided to pick up like an Audible original, and so far I hadn't regretted it, so I decided why not. The first book is The Royal Assignment, and I do not remember the name of the authors. There were multiple, so I'm just gonna put it somewhere on the screen for you. And remember when I said a few seconds ago that I hadn't regretted my decision to listen to Audible originals so far? Yeah, this one was one of those regrettable decisions. To be honest, I think that what put me off this book was the production. Like, it was not the first time I listened to a full cast audiobook with like production and sound effects and everything, but in this book in particular, it felt, I don't know, they were weird. They felt a little disjointed, and it wasn't my cup of tea, to be honest. It was interesting, I guess, but like the plot could have been like so much better. Again, it's a short audiobook, so it's normal, I guess, to feel like the scenes could have been more like expanded and the book in general could have been like exploring more detail. But I don't think that was the only thing that failed in this book for me. I was expecting good things because it was a royal romance and I'm a sucker for those. Anything with royalty in it, I probably will read if it seems like it's gonna be good. But yeah, no, this book was not it for me. Like, I rated it 1.5 stars and I rounded it up to 2 because I see the potential in it. In my opinion, it was just not completely fulfilled. And then the second one, and also my last read of January, was The Wedding Proposal, and I'm going to butcher this last name, I'm so sorry, by John Swanziger. This book wasn't even 2 hours long. It was really short, but it was, I don't know, I found it really cute, and I liked the romance and just the concept of it. It felt really fast-paced, but I feel like it needed to feel that fast-paced because of the concept of the book. But still, it was also full cast and with sound effects, and very similar in production to the first one, but I don't know, done better. And for such a short book, it was, in my opinion, pretty good, and I rated it 4 stars. Okay, we're moving on to February now. Again, I read 2 more volumes from the Lumberjane series. Number 3, A Terrible Plan, and number 4, Out of Time. So again, I love these. They're really short, really quick to read, and I just love seeing all their adventures. It's so much fun, and honestly, like, you can read a volume in like a sitting in like an hour. And they're just real good distractions from anything else that you're reading. If you're reading something heavy, you can just squeeze one of the volumes in if you need a change of pace, and they're really good stories, and I have a lot of fun reading them. I feel like we're slowly getting more structured plots as well with these volumes. Like, we're getting to know more characters, and we're also getting a story constructed as well. So it's not just like random adventures, they're all somewhat connected, and I feel like it's leading up to something way bigger, and I'm excited for that. At this point, volume 4 was probably like my favorite of the ones I have read so far, and I rated them 3 and 4 stars respectively. I also read one book. I know, one full book. I received this book as an e-arc. It's Love Linked by Alison Specka. It's the second book I read by this author. I got the first one lended to me while I was in the US. It was called Comfort Zone. I don't think that was her first book. It's just the first one that I read by her. Someone from the family that I was living with at the time gave it to me to read, and it was okay. Like, it wasn't anything special. Like, I liked it. It was an okay read, and I liked Love Link much more. The concept, the plot was much better, and it was really well constructed. I liked the romance. I just wish, like, I'm gonna sound like a broken record probably at some, like, with this, but I hate miscommunication tropes in books, especially when it's something that could be resolved very simply. Like in this case, I feel like in this book in particular, that trope was overused. Like, it's okay if you use it once at one point in the story, but I feel like miscommunication was present all the time in this book, and I really don't like that. And I feel like this book could have been a lot better without that trope, at least without it being so used. But yeah, it was still an enjoyable read. I liked it quite a bit, and I rated it 3.5 stars, rounded up to 4. And once again, we've made it to the audiobook portion. In February, I listened to 6 audiobooks. The first one was I Think I Love You by, I'm gonna butcher this name again, Orien de Sombre. Once more, this was just a middle of the road read. It was okay, like the romance was kind of cute, but once more, miscommunication, and just the number of times that a group of people within the friend group got together and schemed behind people's backs to like do one thing or another. Overused. It was getting on my nerves. Like, it's fine to do it once, but I feel like it was done like 3 or 4 times in this book, and I just, over time, it just got boring, and like, it just felt very, I don't know, sketchy. I didn't like that these characters continuously resorted to that within the book. It was too many times. One time, fine, I could get behind that, but it was too many times. And also, one of the characters treated their partner pretty badly at one point, and it just doesn't sit right with me that they ended up like getting back together. I feel like that's a spoiler, but a minor one. They're not main characters or anything, but it's just, I don't know, that didn't really sit well with me. I rated it 3.5 stars, rounded down to 3. Next, I listened to OK Cupid by Mason Deaver. This was only the second book that I read by them. I've been meaning to pick up more of their books because I really like the trans, non-binary, or in general queer representation in their books. But I haven't really had the time to pick other of their books. I really want to though, because I loved I Wish You All the Best. That was probably my favorite book the year that I read it. It was really, really good. And I don't know, I just really, really enjoyed it. And it was not the case with OK Cupid. It must have had something that missing that really didn't win me over completely. It's hard to get into the reasons why I didn't fully like this book, without getting into spoilers. And I feel like this video is already long enough without getting into it. But yeah, it's just something was missing for me, I think. Can't really put my finger on what exactly, because the writing was good and the plot in general was a really good premise. But I don't know. I wish I liked it more because I really loved I Wish You All the Best. And I'm definitely picking up more books by Mason Deaver in the future, and I hope to get into another one really soon. I ended up rating this 3.5 stars, rounded down to 3. Next, I listened to The Brothers Hawthorne by Jennifer Lynn Barnes, which is the 4th book in the Inheritance Games series. And this book was just okay. It really felt like what I think it's supposed to be, just a filler book, because I don't feel like it adds anything to the plot that was already close in the final gambit. And I think it's just meant to be a like setup for the next book that's coming out next. I feel like it was meant to introduce new characters that are probably gonna be big players in the next book. And it did have some plot, but I feel like it was just, I don't know, I feel like it could have been, instead of like a full-length book, it could have been just maybe a short story to introduce these characters without having to have like a full-fledged plot involving all of the characters that it did. It could have just focused on the characters that she wanted to introduce and be shorter. It was okay. I liked it in general. It was just not like, it was not my favorite in the series. I again rated it 3.5 stars, rounded down to 3. Next, I listened to How You Get the Girl by Anita Kelly. This is technically the 3rd book in a series. Did I know that when I started reading this book? No. Did I realize that halfway through when I realized I was missing some context about some of the characters that were in there? Yes, I did. Did I read any of the other books beforehand? The first one, but I didn't know that was part of a series either, or I would have picked up the second one. And in general, it didn't really matter that I hadn't read the second book. I got some spoilers along the way, but what can you do? I do want to read it though, because I really liked the first one, which is Love and Other Disasters, and I also really like How You Get the Girl. Also, if it wasn't obvious, the reason why I picked How You Get the Girl is because the title is a Taylor Swift reference. I'm a basic girl. This book was really good. I really liked the romance, but my favorite part was probably the friendship and settling dynamics between Julie and her family and friends, and also the exploration of Elle's physical and mental health. I rated this book 4 stars. Next, I listened to The Merciful Crow by Margaret Owen. I feel like the world building was really good and really well done. There's a caste system, and each caste is named after a bird, and they tend to have certain characteristics those birds are known for. The 3 main characters that we spend most of our time with are Fee, who is an undertaker, she's a crow. Jasamir, who is the crown prince, and he is really against the queen because she's not a very good person. And he wants to take her down, so he fakes his own death. And then we have Tavan, who is the prince's bodyguard. The plot of this was good. I liked it in general. It's just that my favorite part was the characters and the personal relationships between them and how they evolve throughout the book. Again, the rest of it was also really good, but that to me was what made this book good, and that ending. Oh my god. I am reading the second book as soon as possible. I also rated this one 4 stars. And then, my last book of the month was Witches Get Stuff Done by Molly Harper. Again, this was also on the shorter side, and it was free and Audible, so that's part of the reason why I picked it up. But in general, the plot also sounded really good, so I wanted to listen to it. It was not exactly what I was expecting from the book. I was expecting a little bit more, like, magic witchy stuff, but it was still fun, and it still had some magic in it, and it was a good read. It was entertaining, it was fun. Somewhat fast-paced. I do feel like the romance in it was not as necessary. There's a second book. I don't know if there's gonna be more, but I feel like the first book could have focused more on the main character, exploring and finding out about this witchy side of her family that she had no idea existed. And then that could have been the first book. And then the second book could have leaned more on the romantic side of things. I feel like combining both in the first book, considering it's on the shorter side, was a little bit too much. I don't know, I feel like it would have been a bit more balanced if there had been like the introduction of a romance. I think it was expanded too much in the first book when it could have been more the focus of the second book and just use the first one more as a settling into the family home and the witchy side of things, and then again more romance in the second book. But still, it was good, it was enjoyable, I had fun with it. I will be definitely reading the second book, and I rated it 3 stars. And finally, finally we made it to March. So again, I read 2 more installments in the Lumberjane series, Volume 5, Band Together, and Volume 6, Sink or Swim. These 2 are easily my favorite out of the 6 installments I've read so far. They were really cool. I love the characters introduced in this. I love the adventures that they went in. And I like how slowly different things are like being tied together, and you're not just seeing, oh, this is the plot of this installment and that's it. Like, you're seeing it interact with other things that have been already introduced in previous volumes, and I think that's so fun. And the lore keeps being expanded, which is so good. Yeah, I'm really having a great time reading Lumberjanes, to be honest. It's probably like the highlight of my reading month. I rated them 4 and 4.5 stars, rounded down to 4, respectively. Okay, we're getting closer to the end. I say the end. I didn't read any physical books during the month of March, but I did listen to 5 audiobooks. The first one was A Tale of Two Princes by Eric Guerin. Probably butchered that last name again. This book was, I don't know, a little weird. Something about it didn't fully make sense to me, and I'm not just talking about the fact that Canada has a monarchy in this. That's suspension of disbelief for this. But yeah, I don't know. It was not what I was expecting going into it again, but it was interesting and entertaining, and I really liked Billy as a character. But there was something about Edward. Again, it was kind of predictable who the villain, if you can call him that, was going to be. But I have mixed feelings about Edward, because whenever I saw him through Billy's POV, I liked him. I felt almost bad for him, that like he had always been like the crown prince and everything, and now he's being displaced because, whoops, you have a twin brother that's a few minutes older than you. You're not the crown prince anymore. And I do feel a little bit bad for that, but at the same time, he always complained about things that he couldn't do because he was the crown prince, and you're not the crown prince anymore, so you can do them now. Why are you complaining? Like, I get it, like, but you got a lot of responsibility on your shoulders. I get the existential crisis of being like, what am I gonna do now? This was supposed to be my life, and I don't know what to do with my life. But in general, I feel like, yeah, I liked him in Bill's POV, but then every time we got Edward's POV, he would do or say something or even think something that just made me so mad at him. And I'm like, dude, I really want to root for you, but you're making it so hard. But yeah, in general, it was a fun read. It was interesting. I enjoyed it. I do wish Edward's character was handled a little bit differently. I rated this book 3.5 stars, rounded down to 3. Next, probably one of my favorite reads from this month. It's The Scarlet Veil by Shelby Mawarim. Probably also butchered that last name. I wasn't sure what to expect going into it. I had heard that there were vampires in it, and I started my vampire phase with Twilight, and I haven't really left it yet. Like, I'm still deep in it. Anything with vampires in it, I'm a sucker for. So I knew that, and it's also sort of a continuation, but with a different main character from the Serpent and Dove series, which I read those books as they were coming out, and I liked it. I don't think I liked them as much as other people were liking it. I feel like the reviews for Serpent and Dove and Blood and Honey were like mostly mixed reviews. Like, some people were like, oh, they're great. Other people were like, no, we don't like this. And I feel like it was like kind of middle of the road for me. I liked Serpent and Dove. I didn't really like Blood and Honey too much. And then Gods and Monsters, I feel like I'm one of the few people that actually really liked that ending. Like, I feel like everyone was so mad. I remember seeing everyone be like, oh, I don't like this. But I liked it. Maybe I'm weird. The thing is, I liked the ending, but there were things about it that I wasn't like completely sold on, especially Sally's character. I don't know if I'm pronouncing her name right. In the audiobook it's pronounced Silly, but it's supposed to be a French name. I really very much doubt it's pronounced Silly. I don't know, any French people watching this, correct me if I'm wrong. I really liked her character, and I wanted to explore her more, and I didn't really like that she ended up with Jean-Luc. But this book, oh my god, like the way her character was explored and everything we find out about her, and just everything really had me on the edge of my seat. I loved this book so much. I cannot wait for the next part of the series. I cannot believe the book ended the way it did. I'm like, I really need to read the second book like yesterday. It was really good. I liked it a lot. Again, I'm on the small pool of readers that really liked Gods and Monsters as opposed to the fans of the series that didn't like it. So maybe I'm one of the few people that like The Scarlet Veil, but I think it was a great explanation of Sally's character, and I enjoy reading it so much and just cannot wait for the next book. I rated it 4.5 stars, rounded down to 4, because I'm hoping I like the next book more and I can give it 5 stars. Next, I listened to This Poison Heart by, I'm gonna butcher this name in general, Kaylin Barron. I've been meaning to read a book by this author for the longest time. I had my eye on Cinderella Set for a long time. It's here on my bookshelf somewhere. I haven't read it yet. And I ended up picking up This Poison Heart first because it was available on Libby. So I read it and I do not regret it. That book was so good. Like, I feel like the more time I sit with it after finishing it, I detach myself from it a little bit more, and I don't remember as much, or I don't remember why I liked it as much, but I had such a good time as I was listening to it. I love these characters and the story, and just, I don't know, like, it was built really well, and the lore around it, and the way we were finding out things, like, little by little, and you had the pieces to put it all together. This book was really good. And that ending, like, the climax, and I was mind blown, speechless. Loved it. I cannot wait to pick up the second book in the series. I rated it 4.5 stars, rounded down to 4, again, because I'm hoping I will give the second 5 stars. Next, I listened to Love at First Set by Jennifer Dugan. Again, this is a book that wasn't what I was expecting at all. I was expecting it to focus a little bit more on the gym aspect of it, things, because it's called Love at First Set. And again, it was somewhat centered around the gym, and the main character wanted to have her own gym, but I feel like it wasn't centered on that as much as I expected it to, which again, it's probably my expectations and not the book itself. I liked the romance, it was good. Again, just communication going on, like, they don't talk, please talk. And there was one character that really got on my nerves, which is James, Lizzie's best friend and Kara's brother. I feel like he was so obnoxious at times, and I just couldn't deal with him. Like, the way he talked to them sometimes, both to Kara and Lizzie, and, like, I don't know, he was, like, not really listening to them and what they wanted. He was so focused on himself and what he wanted to do. Like, he literally treated Kara as, like, baggage. Like, she was like, oh, like, my sister, like, broke up with her fiance like, the day before her wedding. Actually, the day of her wedding. And, like, she's now living with me, and, like, I just want to be able to, like, go see my boyfriend. So, like, please, Lizzie, will you hang out with her? But, like, don't have feelings for her. Like, distract her, like, have days with her, but, like, don't catch feelings for my sister. I really didn't like that. You're using your friend as a babysitter, essentially, for your sister. And you're, like, making rules for them. And, like, you're just, like, wanting to do your own thing and disconnecting. And then, like, I feel like he needed a little bit more of a redemption arc by the end. He was forgiven so quickly by everyone. Like, no. Like, that was not, like, that did not sit all that well with me. But, yeah, the romance in general was okay. It was good. I liked it. But, and the ending was great. But, yeah, James needed a little bit more of a redemption arc. He was forgiven far too quickly, in my opinion. I rated this book 3.5 stars, rounded down to 3. And finally, we made it to the last book I read in March, which is The Boyfriend Subscription by Steven Salvatore. This is, I think, the second book I read by this author. I've been wanting to read other of their books, but I haven't had the chance to. And this one, I really wanted to pick it up because I live in a household where everyone is obsessed with Pretty Woman, and this is a Pretty Woman retelling with gay characters. So I really wanted to pick this one up. I was really intrigued by the plot. It was fun, it was steamy, it just checked all of my boxes. It was a really good read. It wasn't perfect, there were still things about it that I didn't fully love, but it was a really good read. I listened to it really fast. It was somewhat fast-paced, but, like, no, it didn't feel too rushed. It does take place in, like, a shorter period of time, so I get why it kind of feels a little rushed, but yeah, like, not too much at all. I love the characterization of Cole and Teddy, and, like, the positive approach to sex and sex work, which it was really well handled in this, in my opinion. But again, I feel like miscommunication trope, way too overused, and especially I get it when it adds a little bit more of, like, drama to it in the beginning of the book, or, like, at the, like, climax of it, but, like, you've already discovered what's been going on. Like, most of the drama is supposed to be over, and then you add the miscommunication trope to add more drama and more layers to it, which I feel like by that point was not necessary. We were almost at the end. I was not expecting more drama to unfold. So yeah, that part was, like, the thing that it made me not fully, like 100% love this book. I ended up rating it 4 stars. And that's it! We've made it to the end of this video. Those were all 27 books that I've read between January, February, and March of 2024. Anyway, I hope you liked this video. Thank you so much for watching, and see you next time. Bye!